Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. Last week we made the little pouch out of the courthouse steps block, and I just wanted to show you that I have stitched mine in. Where is it? There it is. So this week, for my next page, which happens to be cloth, I am going to have a play basically. I think it's going to look vaguely like a rose, that's the intention. So I've got my foundation piece, which is about a generous 4 inches, but you know, any size will do. I've never done this before, full disclosure, but it works in my head, so we'll see. So instead of a square in the middle, I've cut a 5-sided shape. I suppose it's vaguely a pentagon. I just cut it freehand. And I did fiddle about a bit to get the sides roughly the same kind of length-ish. Obviously they can't be, or it'd be a square. But just cut yourself basically some kind of 5-sided shape. And I'm going to put it on, and I'm going to put it on cattywampus. So none of the sides are parallel to any of the sides. Clear so far. I've just slapped it in the middle. If you want to measure or do folding to find out where the middle is, you go for it. And I've chosen, because it's a rose and I'm of Yorkshire stock, Yorkshire is the white rose, so I've chosen pale colours. Just various strips of scraps of, you know, stuff. So I'm going to start in the middle, I think, with the sort of darker of my neutrals. And then my plan is, as I get round to the outside, I'll go paler. In my head it works. We'll see if it works in real life. So I'm going to follow exactly the same log cabin principle of stitching round and round. I'm just going to cut a little strip off here. And I think I'm going to lay them on raw edge. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't work pieced with a seam, but I just think I'm going to lay them on raw edge. So I'm going to cut it, dear Henry, to rough. I'm going to go along this edge first. So I'm going to cut it so it's roughly the same length as that edge. Oops, go away a little bit. And then I'm going to lay it on so it overlaps by maybe 3/16 of an inch. And then I'm going to just stitch it on. Actually, rewind. I'm going to just stitch around this little shape first, I think, just to hold it on. Yeah, I'm going to do that. This is a very wonky Wednesday. Completely wonky. Making it up as we go along. So I'm just about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the shape, the 5-sided shape. And I'm just going to stitch it down, because then I can overlap the other pieces and I won't be stitching through this. So yeah, it needed to be held in place. Thinking on my feet, or on my bottom because I'm sitting on my chair. So just a running stitch. This bit of sheet is a bit thick, but I'll go with it. There we go. So now I'm going to lay my bit on, and I'm going to just this is the edge I'm working on. Can you see this edge here? So I'm just going to overlap it by about somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to hop up just underneath with my needle and thread to come out somewhere there-ish. You can always come back and do fancy stitching over the top at the end. So this is my plan, just to work my way around, sewing bits on in line with the edges of the shape. Now there you see I've completely covered that edge. I could trim that. Shall I do that? Just, do you see underneath there where the end of that line is? I'm laying my scissors kind of on that point and just trimming that. Probably if it's thin cloth I could just leave it there. We'll see. We're doing this together. Let's try this bit next. It's got a nice fluffy edge. So again, I'm just parallel to the next line of my bit of middle there. which I made yellowish because white dog roses have yellow stamens in the middle, so that was my thinking anyway. So again, I'm just overlapping it by that small amount that's somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4. And stitch that bit down. So there's 2 sides. And then onto another bit. Can you see where I'm? Yes, you can. Where I'm getting the bits from. Bit of that. Just cut it to length. So all the time eyeballing that's the straight edge of my 5-sided shape and overlapping the previous bit that I stitched on. Lengthwise, as long as it comes sort of to there. Do you see that point there? Because I'm anticipating that the next round will cover this one by about half, probably. Because it's quite a small bit, so I want to be able to fit quite a few on. Just to get the effect of, you know, how the petals lay around a flower. Turn it into another bit. It's big enough if I cut that pointy bit off. It's actually way too wide. I'm going to trim that a little bit. I suppose my strips are about 3/4 of an inch wide. So then this is the line that I'm looking at to get it parallel with. Come up from the back. And the 5th bit. Now I can hardly see that line anymore, so I might just trim this. So again, if you flip that back, if you see the point between your 2 lines, you know, your 2 sides of your shape, and put your scissors kind of perpendicular to that and trim, then you should be good. So I need one more bit of slightly darker colour. Now here I have to kind of judge, that's a bit big, let's have some of that. I have to kind of judge where my next piece is going to go. As I said, I'm really making this up as I go along. So I think I'm going to come right out to here with that piece and right out to there. I can always cut some off if it's too much. I'll show you what I've done. So this is my last line, the last line of the yellow that you see. So that piece overlaps that yellow by the, you know, 1/8 to 1/4. But then it comes enough onto here that when I'm putting my next piece on, imagine this is my next piece, do you see? It'll cover that point. And then going in the other direction, when I put this next piece on, I want to make sure that it covers that point. Do you see? While staying parallel to this. Now all this parallel, this is Wonky Wednesday after all, it's parallel-ish. Basically, we're just going to keep stitching strips round and round in the hope that at the end of it, it looks vaguely like a rose. Or, you know, a pleasing shape. Shall we set the bar a little bit lower and call it a pleasing shape? And we'll see. We'll see what we get. Nothing ventured. So that's one complete round. So I've put 5 bits on my 5-sided shape. You can see what I'm doing. So some of this nice fluffy stuff. Put it. So I'm coming right out to there, to the end of there, and I'm going past. I'm going about the same, I'll show you when I've cut it. So I've gone out to nearly the end of this because I want to come stitching through here on the next round, and this edge is about lined up with the previous strip actually, and then I'm going to put it about there so that I've got a good 1/4 inch of that showing. But none of these measurements really matter. Basically it just wants to look nice. My husband's downstairs having a business meeting by Zoom. Apologies if you can hear him in the background. I hope nobody's done anything wrong. His voice is quite raised. I hope nobody's in trouble. But sometimes it just carries, you know, because he's at the bottom of the stairs. So now I can't see, obviously, the edges of my yellow anymore. Now I'm just looking at this piece and getting it vaguely parallel to that. I think I'm going to cut this a bit thinner. That's quite wide. Now he's really raising his voice. Many apologies if it's disturbing. Doesn't sound angry. Just loud. So I hope those of you who were in the path of totality had a good eclipse. Is that what, I don't know what the protocol is for wishing people, wishing that people had a good eclipse. I hope your skies were clear. I don't think the forecast was good in some areas of the States where the eclipse was going to be. But they did say that then at least you would have darkness and the birds would stop singing, but you wouldn't actually see, but not directly, the moon passing in front of the sun. I'm just going to leave that now. See, that's now made me afraid to trim anything. I'm just going to not trim and just lay things on. It's a bit of silk, very fragile silk, very old and fragile silk. I don't dare rip it. I'm just going to cut some. Cut all the way up there to where it's torn. Very creased. I don't dare do my thing of licking it and rubbing it against the edge of the desk because I think it will disintegrate. For those of you who didn't see that video, I can't remember, it was one of the weekly weeks. The weekly weeks, you know what I mean? Oh, it was Valentine's week. I think it was a bit of pink silk that I wanted to put on my heart that was crumpled. And I licked it and ironed it on the edge of my desk. I won't do that with this because I think it would disintegrate. So where I'm putting my stitching, I just want to be sure that it's going to be covered by the next round, basically. And I'm just putting each piece where I think I want it to cover either end and roughly parallel to the previous piece. That's my guide, as far as guides go. I'm going to get a new thread because I've already pulled that off my needle once. You see that wants to stick up, but it'll get stitched down. It'll get stitched across here, and if it still doesn't lay, then it'll get decorative stitching in it. So these Wonky Wednesdays, they've kind of evolved. The weekly slow stitch on the Monday, there was a a vague plan that every Monday there would be a little piece. Oh, sorry, I head-butted you. With a theme to it and introducing different stitching techniques as we went along and in the ethos of slow stitch. But these Wonky Wednesdays started with me showing my wonky log cabin blocks, and then I made the little journal out of the blocks, and then I thought, well, there's probably other log cabin-y type things I can show you, and now it's just kind of by by all those things happening, become a thing. So now, for as long as I can come up with something to do with log cabin or log cabin type thing, there will be, well, there'll probably still be a Wonky Wednesday, but, you know, it'll be log cabin related. And at one point, when I run out of log cabin related ideas, I'll think of something else. But I do think it is nice to have something on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, because we've got the Mondays. And it seems a long time from Monday to Monday. I think that bit's a bit wide. I'm going to trim that a bit narrower as well. And yeah, so Wednesdays are unstructured, shall we say, but at the moment we're exploring inspired by or log cabin related things. And this is only really log cabin related because I've started with a piece in the middle and I'm stitching strips round and around the edge. So, you know, it's a very dim and distant relation. And I have no idea what I'm going to do when I get out to the outside. Because obviously I've got this blobby shape on a square background. But we'll see when we get there. But I don't know about you, I think it's exciting not knowing where you're going. Right, I think I want to start getting a little bit lighter. I think I still want to be in the creams, I don't want to be in the whites yet. Obviously you can choose any colour you like, or you don't have to do the graduation if you don't, that's not wide enough. If you don't have, you know, loads of cloths within the similar colourway, different shades of the same colour. And I'm leaving all that frayed edge because that's just a nice texture, and I'm not worrying about that either. All I'm really lining up with is the edge of the previous patch on the previous strip. And I'm doing quite big running stitches because these are just really to hold it all in place until I come back and do some fancy stitching over the top. That little bit in the middle was dyed with onion skins. Coming up this Friday is a video showing dyeing with onion skins, natural dyeing with onion skins. And that'll be red onion skins and brown onion skins. And a little bit of eco printing as well, just a sort of brief introduction to eco printing, also using onion skins. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, look out for that. So there again, you see this is my previous strip, and you see where I'm pointing, yeah. So I'm just lining this strip up with that, and I'm going to cut this kind of in line with this, I think, because my next strip will go there. Do you see what I mean? And I think that's maybe what I should have been doing from the beginning. You of course have the advantage of being able to watch this whole thing, watching me make all the mistakes. That's too wide again, let's cut some off. And getting it right first time. I am liking the look of it though, how it's building up in the middle, I must say, so far. Still not sure what I'm going to do when I get to the edge. I think probably what I'll do is just work out past the edge on the sides and then put some extra pieces in the corners and then turn it over and trim it from the back. I think that would make sense. We'll see. It's very pleasing the way it all nests in together. So I want something, now I can have a bit of that. So I'm lining it up with this piece, like that. And then this edge needs to line up with here, and then this edge needs to line up with here. It's better, it's easier to see now, it's getting bigger and a bit more substance to it, in my defence. And I'm going to trim a little bit off, because my strip's too wide. Get down a little bit of silk, we want to trap you. And I guess I'm leaving somewhere between quarter and half an inch showing of each strip. But that's all to play for, you know. If you wanted to do a bigger one and have wider strips or leave more of your strips showing, then of course you could do that. And if you wanted to make it smaller or have narrower strips and put more strips on there to have even more texture, then I think you could absolutely do that as well. That's got a crease to go in. Stay where I put you. Right, so now I need another bit for here. Some of this. I'm going to come quite low with that because that bit of silk was quite wide. So trim it off with the one to its left. This is a bit of that sort of age-stained old sheet that I used last week in my courthouse steps. So yeah, my hands are a bit yellow from the onion skins, and also I had the farrier here this morning trimming the horses' feet. They're both barefoot. Lovely gentle chap, our farrier. I wouldn't have anyone else handling my horses. It's always nice to see them with their nice, neat, trimmed little hoofs. And he's very gentle with them, especially my naughty boy. But both of their hooves were in excellent condition, which is nice to hear, especially since we've had so much wet weather. Luckily our land is quite well drained. Well, it's not luckily in the height of summer when it all dries out, but it just means in winter that it doesn't get too muddy, and it's quite sloping. Actually, we pretty much do keep grass all year round unless it's a severe drought, at least down at the bottom of the slope, so it's quite good. I can sort of move them around accordingly, you know. I've got like a big L-shaped field of about, trying to think what it is in acres. It's nearly 2 hectares, so I think that's like 4 or 5 acres, something like that. And like I said, it's L-shaped, so in the middle of each of the 2 L's there are 2 big inner fields, and then a figure 8 of track that goes all right around the whole area, the whole, you know, fields, which means they get the track all the time. And then the fields we can divide and rotate them and so on, so they're not, you know, on the same ground all the time. It's better to rest the ground and so on. I don't know if this is interesting. It's just that the farrier was here and we were talking about the land and that we're lucky that we've got, you know, good land. It was quite a lot of work and investment to put all the fences and the tracks in, because obviously you could just put a perimeter fence and call it done, but then we've got the 2 big inner fences, and but I'm glad we did it. It was well worth doing. And the other theory is as well, if you have them on a track, that it keeps them moving rather than them just standing grazing in a rectangular field. It's the theory anyway. Right, so this is quite a, excuse me, pardon me, this is quite a long length here now, but I'm still doing the same thing. I do sometimes get spring fever and start racing around the track, but they're both pretty calm, really. Well, Raff's getting on, he's in his 20s now. And my horse Baldur is an Icelandic horse, and they're known for their calm but brave nature. I'm really, really pleased with how this is looking in the centre. So that worked. So you'll be seeing this video. No. I think unless it was a total fail, I would have shown you anyway, because I think, you know, I'm never going to be someone who pre-plans everything and shows you something all slick and rehearsed. That's never going to be me. But I think if I have an idea and make something and it doesn't work, or I have to tweak it or whatever, if I show you that anyway, I think that's maybe as interesting as me showing you something, you know, tried and tested. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. You can always turn me off. You can always say, oh my goodness, she's utterly lost the plot, we're off. But hopefully if I do something that doesn't work, I can at least maybe have a little think about why it didn't work and share that with you as well. Let's have some of this. This was a tray cloth, you see, it's really fragile. I can just tear it without even snipping, it's so fragile. I'm going to tear it like this, carefully, so it doesn't completely disintegrate. Whoops, I don't dare pull at that, I'm just going to snip that too long bit off. Right, so now we're going along this line. I don't like that fraying there. Excuse me while I give my cloth a haircut. Now, do you see I'm now starting to come off the edge there? I'm going to just let that overhang for now and worry about that later. Just trim at the other end. But make sure that when I'm now doing my stitching that I stay into my foundation cloth and not, you know, don't come off the edge there. So I think I'm going to just take a little bend around the corner there and then come back again parallel to my strip. So I've obviously started with a 5-sided shape, which has given me five strips per round. But you could start with any, you know, another kind. You could start with a triangle, and we'll probably will do that in a future week. You could start with a hexagon. That's a fairly common thing to do. And then you have 6 strips going round, and you can do that all precise and measured, and you know, start with a hexagon, cut with a template, or you can just cut a 6-sided shape, which is probably more how I do it, and do it wonky. Some more of that. I don't have much that's plain white because I tend to dye everything. Yeah, let's have this instead. That's a bit skinny, that end. Let's have this bit more towards the middle. My Fiskars are downstairs. My little orange scissors. Now when I'm trimming here I have to be really careful not to cut through my sewing thread. I've done that. Excuse my hand in the way. I've done that many a time. So yeah, I think that will work if I just keep going round until I'm to the straight edges, you know, here, here, here and here. And then just put extra bits on the corners. We'll see. Maybe it would be interesting at one point to do this with proper seams rather than the raw edge. I don't know. I love the texture of the raw edges, but this is a little piece to go in the journal. If you did lots of fancy stitching on, I think it would be perfectly sturdy enough to make into a cushion or a rice bag, or you know, any of those kinds of things. I'm not afraid of raw edges in things like that. I'm not afraid that they'll fall to bits. If you put plenty of stitching in, then they certainly won't. I'm just trying to find, let's have some more of this, I think. Maybe we'll have the pretty little edge there, like that. Just wondering whether to say it's too wide and trim it, or whether to just leave it big like that, because it's so fragile. I think what I cut off wouldn't be any use because it's really fragile, so I think I'll just leave it in there for ballast, for stuffing. And then my other plans for this week, if the weather behaves, because it's gone a bit, well, it's been spring-like for a while, but we've still been having a lot of rain. So haven't really felt the urge to go and do much outside. But one job I really want to do is, and that was kind of because I did the video of onion skin dyeing, which I actually had to do in my kitchen because it wasn't nice enough to be out. You know, I couldn't have done it outside. It was too windy and rainy, and I do have a little overhang, but the wind still whistles under there. My onion skins would have been all over the neighbourhood. But anyway, because I had to go out looking for pots to cook in and, you know, utensils and so on, I found it a bit annoying that it was a bit untidy out there. Just my autumn eco printing probably got a bit not frenzied, but you know, in full eco printing mode I made a mess, let's say, and I never put it away properly. I mean, it was put away, but you know, things were just thrown into places. And I always like, before I really get going, to make everything tidy, and I should have done that in autumn, but I didn't. So we'll have a spring clean of the, don't really have a dye kitchen as such, it's a little overhang outside. It's actually where they would have cooked the food for the pigs in the old days, because there's a great big fire, or brick built with a little iron hatch that opens where you would put the wood in. And I don't put a fire in there anymore. The stones all, you know, the bricks and stones are all completely broken and fallen in. There's no space anymore. But sitting in the top of it is a huge cauldron. I mean, huge. It's about 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 inches in diameter. Cast iron cauldron, and it's set in. And it had a lid on it, and the lid was upside down, so it just looked like a surface. And I think I lived here for about 2 years, and I thought it just had an iron top to this fireplace. And then one day, I can't exactly remember how, but I realised that this big circle of iron moved. So I got something under it and levered it up, and underneath was this huge cauldron, in which they would have cooked. They would have lit a fire on, you know, in the brick-built thingy-bob underneath, oven thing, and then they would have put the pig swill in the cauldron, put the lid on, and cooked away. And I had all these fine ideas that I could use it for my eco printing. It's so huge you can't get it out of there, so filling it wouldn't be a problem, but emptying it would be. And also, like I said, the actual oven, I suppose it's a brick oven, all the bricks have fallen in, so probably if you try and get all those bricks out, the whole thing will collapse. So it's more of just a, you know, there for show kind of thing. But it's an amazing thing. But anyway, I have other cauldrons and pans, or I call them cauldrons. Well, I do have some cast iron cauldron-y type things, you know, with the little feet. But I have lots of aluminium thrifted pans, and I'll show you. There'll be a video out there at one point when the leaves are giving. That's why I did onion skins, because there's no leaves at the moment. Well, not leaves you can really use. Can I squeeze that bit on there? I wouldn't see why not. Is that little skinny bit big enough? No, because do you see this piece here? I'll show you with this, it's not the right colour, but I want this piece to come out to here. You see what I mean? Because I'm visualising, stay where I put you, out to here, because I'm visualising that the next piece that I put will come this way. Do you see? And then those two pieces together will cover the foundation square there. So I'm just sort of planning ahead a little bit. If I had this piece too far over there like that, and then I put that piece on, do you see? There's going to be a little bit of the... Am I gone too far that way? Do you see what I mean? There's going to be a little bit of foundation cloth showing. So when you start getting out to the edge, you just need to play a little bit. I don't want that, that's too dark a colour. My idea of getting lighter as I came out. Some of this will do, it's just a normal sheet that's not had anything done to it. It's got a slightly jaggedy edge. So there, you see, if that comes to there and then this piece comes to there, see where my thumb is, that should be okay. Should be okay. Fred hair. He loves it when the farrier comes, Fred, he's out there. Because the horses are, I don't have stables or anything, you know, they're outdoorsy horses. But they're on head collars here, we're just out into the entrance to the field here, just by my terrace, under my window here. We've got some rubber matting down, so that when you go in through the gate where we put their hay and their water and where we feed them, it stays dry, you know. I can go out there with my, just with my clogs on. You don't need boots or anything, even in the middle of winter. But Fred likes to go and lay on there because it's sand, and the minute the sun's out it's nice and warm. So anyway, the farrier comes, put the horses on their head, I get them on their head collars and just stand there with them. They both honestly would just stand there anyway. But Fred likes it when they're restrained, especially mine, especially Baldo. Ruff, the bigger horses, my daughters. But my horse, Fred likes to go up and try and say hello to him, but my horse chases, well, he doesn't chase him. I think he just wants to sniff him. So he puts his head down and walks along, and Fred runs away, and so Bally starts running, and then it seems like chasing. Do you see what I mean? Although it's not really chasing. Bally gives up at one point. Too much energy. Cat, if you don't want to be sniffed, I'm not going to persevere. But yeah, of course, when they're on their head collars for whatever reason, if they're being groomed or if the farrier's here or you know, so forth, Fred comes and takes advantage and starts rubbing around their legs. And once he actually tried to shin up Bally's leg when he was a kitten. And Bally just looked round in surprise that there was a kitten shinning up his leg. They're both very calm. Whoops. I've never yet seen Fred jump onto Bally's back, but it wouldn't not surprise me if one day he did. And it wouldn't surprise me either if Bally let him. I know I've seen videos and photos often of cats on horses' backs. Right, now this piece, do you see I'm now parallel to the edge? Now being as how I didn't start, if you remember, with my middle piece being parallel, obviously I've not kept my line straight. But, you know, we're wonky. Wonky gives us permission to do all these things and not worry about it. As long as we're pleased with what we've made at the end of it, or even if we're not pleased with it, if we've enjoyed making it, there's also a thing. I can't use my tray cloth again because I've already used my tray cloth there. What about a bit more of the silk, although it's slightly darker? Let's use a bit more of this sheet that's got the wibbly edge. I'll use it without its wibbly edge. Let's do it like that, and then only need one little piece in that corner and it's covered there. And the way I see it at this moment, I don't think I even want to put fancy stitching on it, because I'm just loving the texture of it all. But, you know, if you make one of these, don't get a knot in your thread, and you decide you want to put fancy stitching, you can. Well, we'll see. I'll see. Not there yet. This bit's a bit wide, but I'm going to stitch right up until I get to the edge of my foundation cloth. And then I'm going to stitch along, sort of parallel to the edge. Can you see, of my foundation cloth? Can you see? It's quite difficult because it's all white. But I can feel with my finger behind. Whoops. There we go. Now I need something for here, for this corner. Now I could either get one super wide bit, like maybe this. I think it needs more than one super wide bit. I'm going to just take a strip of that. Okay, we'll need something else there. Now I've come out there, I don't really want to stitch there. I think I'm going to end my thread on the back. I'll do a bit of trimming. It's only cotton, so the easiest. Oh, sorry, I headbutted you again. I'm sorry. I still haven't got the light right. I think I said in Monday's video that I had to take equipment downstairs for the eco dyeing, and I still haven't got it set up. There we go. How it was exactly. That's better. So now I need a little bit of something here on this corner. What about this? I think I'm going to stitch that on like that first and then trim it afterwards, and then I can be sure it's the right size. Right, let's go there. You see, that's been pinked and it's been torn and it's ragged, but it's quite an interesting edge, so I'm going to just go for it as it is. No, I don't want to do that. I was going to finish off, do I? I don't know. I think I will finish off. I'm just going to go through to the back and finish off. I'm going to trim that again from the back and then take a view. Take a view. It's really foofy. It's really thick and foofy. You could, of course, if you had all that gear, go and do rotary cutting. I do have all that gear, but it would involve major rearranging. I'd have to get my cloth away, and you know. And also, I'm not good at rotary cutting sitting down. I like to stand up to rotary cut, and then I really would be headbutting you. I'm going to cut that little corner off. And then I need something here. Here. Let's have some of that way around on there. The big scissors, might as well. I've got them here. Cut your fingers. And I'm not pinning, I'm just putting them on and stitching them down, but obviously if you find it easier to pin when you get to where it's wider. Now, do you think it looks anything like a rose? I think it maybe vaguely has, you know, something to do with a rose. It doesn't look exactly how it looked in my head. You know, when you have ideas and you see things in your head, it doesn't look like that. I'm going to stitch along that edge, I think, just to hold that down. But it's interesting. It was worth doing, I think. And then I want something there. Oh, I'm so sorry. Honestly, Catherine, stop headbutting the lovely people. It's not nice to do that. See here, I want to make sure that this corner of this reaches the edge of the foundation cloth, because if I put it right down in there somewhere, I don't think that's a very nice junction. I'd rather have it overlapping a good bit and then trim it back, especially since it's just a bit of old sheet. So again, make sure the end of my strip is at least meeting, if not further than the end of the foundation. I think I'm going to trim that. I'm going to lay that like that so it's laying flat and trim it. And I'm just trimming it with the foundation. I'm just trimming everything that's sticking out past that foundation. Like that. Let's do the tray cloth again, but let's get the fluffy edge of it. Now I'm going to stitch that onto the corner. So I'm going to it's a bit fiddly. I'm going to just cut a piece like that, a bit bigger than I think I need, but a triangular shaped piece. I'm going to just stitch it on there, and then I think I'm going to have to do the same on the opposite corner, and then I think I'm going to, like I said, make a frame somehow around the edge of it, because I like the middle, so I want all the focus to be on the middle. I'm not so sure about the edge. When in doubt, cover it up. So what I can imagine, if you wanted to make some of these and sew them together, would be to use the strip joining method that I showed in the joining the log cabins video, but then maybe use a darker strip. You could also use a, you know, the same colour as your cloth, or a contrasting strip, so that they stood as individual pieces, you know, framed by your contrasting strip, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to stitch something onto the other corner. I might use this same cream tray cloth, because I do love that little edge. Like that piece there, there's a little hole there, but that won't matter. So the same thing again, I'm going to just stitch, you know, around the corner of the foundation. Okay, so I've found 2 strips of darker cloth, some eco print, which I think will frame it nicely, and they are about 1 inch wide, more or less 1 inch wide. And I'm going to cut 2 that are the width of my square. 1, 2, going that way for starters, and I might use some applique pins. And I'm going to fold it in half like that and finger press it, and I'm going to use it as kind of a raw edge binding. I want to line that up so it just wraps the edge. And then my applique pins. I'm sorry, I can't say it normally anymore. I'm going to hold it in place for a minute, and that'll hide all those strange little pointy bits. I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. Fold it in half first, finger press. Of course you can iron if you want to. I'm not gonna. I am going to make sure all my weird pointy bits get trapped in. And pin that. And I'm trying to roughly get it so that there's, you know, the same amount on the front as on the back. Would depend what was happening with the back, you know. If you were going to stitch it to your book, then it wouldn't matter what happened on the back, really. There we go. And then before I could, oh dear, I've got a nasty thread. I could just sew those on and then attach the next bit. I don't want to trim any of that because it's necessary. It's necessary to the overall look of the piece. So then these 2 pieces, I'm going to cut another 2, the same. They'll be the same size as the block again. Just by eye. If you want to do all the measury stuff, you know, I'm not stopping you. I wouldn't dream of it. And then I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So these other two pieces are going to cover the ends of the first two pieces, and they're obviously going to be raw edge on their ends, but if that bothered you, you could turn the edges in, you know, cut them a bit longer and turn the edges in, but like I said, raw edges do not bother me in the slightest. In fact, I like them. Get that pinned. Fiddle about. Get that pin out and reuse it there. And that piece is very dark in that corner, but I don't mind. It is what it is. Excuse my arms coming across. And I think with a little frame round, I think it makes a world of difference. Need to get that pin out. I should have planned ahead and not put my pins right up into the corners. There we go. Well, I'm not saying I'd call it a rose. Can we say it's inspired by a rose? Now I'm going to come in from the back, but behind that cloth, so my knot's hidden inside. Do you see? And you could do any kind of stitching you liked. I'm just going to do a running stitch, I think. Okay, so I've gone around 3 sides because I thought I can use my 4th side to go through yet another layer. We'll see if it works, and put it in my book. But before I put it in my book, let me just show you the back. So the back's not too bad at all. You've just got that spiralling or concentric line of stitching of the shape, you know, the pentagon / 5-sided shape that we made. If I had kept the knots hidden inside, the back would have been absolutely fine. So what I was thinking was, if you did 4 like this, maybe slightly bigger, you could make yourself a little rice bag out of them. Just by joining them, whip stitching them in the style of English paper piecing, you know. So say this was 1 and this was 1. You could just whip stitch the sides and then make a base, and you'd have a little rice bag. And if you want to do more fancy stitching, go for it. But I'm going to leave it as it is because I just like the texture of all the layers. And you can definitely see the 5-sided shape going on. Yeah, I think it's worth exploring further. But I'm going to sew it in my book for now, where it looks quite fine and dandy. Get it down a bit so you can see what I'm doing. Probably will have to stab stitch, although I'm away from the corner. I'm just going to... So apart from the fact that it's really thick here and there because of all the layers, I've quite enjoyed making that. I'm liking the look of it. Like I said at the top of the show, so to speak, I had no idea really what I was doing. Well, I had some idea, you know. It's not something I've done before, this in this exact way, but you know, transferable skills, they say, don't they? Done things similar, so it's not much of a leap. And it looks nothing like it looked in my head, but I still am quite pleased with it, so that's good as well. Often the expectation you set up in your head can set you up for disappointment. So it's best to try and be a little bit open to possibilities. Right, that's the last stitch. And there we have it, our Yorkshire rose-ish, white rose of Yorkshire. Just get that off. Get rid of that ugly loose thread. There we go. There's the back again. So, you know, I think that will be fine as the inside of a rice bag, as long as you maybe hid your knots if they bothered you. And that's how you could make that. So I hope some of you make one, and then I can drool over them in the Facebook group or on Instagram. But otherwise, have fun making that little block if you're following along with Wonky Wednesday. Let's call it the Yorkshire Rose, you know. Humour me. Okay, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.